Hi, friends. So I hope that when I post different things, on this channel, that I know a lot of it is heavy, and it may actually make some people feel like things are hopeless. But as I mention on occasion that there are a lot more of us than there are of the powers that be, and a lot more, and that all empires fall, and they usually overextend themselves, and they get this kind of hubris that they don't see the writing on the wall. And the other thing is that, for example, I see the United States and a lot of the people living there a little bit like, they're propagandized to all blazes, but I see them a little bit like a child of a very malignant narcissist, a grandiose narcissist. And they basically, at some point, the child grows up and can recognize the dysfunction, even if they can't put a name to it. And I see that the powers that be, the people who run the empire, are the grandiose narcissist. They are basically bereft of empathy, and are completely engulfed in their own greed, which is a kind of a spiritual death, really. So the people who are leading and who are controlling the narrative, who are controlling the public, and who are fine with millions of people dying from COVID, or they're fine with people who cannot afford healthcare, sort of dying and their children dying and all of that, and not being able to afford insulin and that kind of thing. And like a 7-year-old recently was doing some sort of lemonade stand or something to raise money for her cancer treatment. That's the sort of spiritual death that a lot of the powers that be, who allow this kind of, who allow people and children to struggle, and allow minority groups to be targets of violence and all that kind of stuff. That's a spiritual death, and it's something that one could actually feel a certain kind of sadness for those people, that's how most of them spend their life, enjoying the suffering and the oppression of others. I think even if they had everything they wanted, every single thing they wanted, and they were basically living in a God realm, they still wouldn't be happy if they didn't have people they could look down upon, people who they could put the foot on their necks. And I really feel that's how it would be for them. But as I said, I feel like that a lot of people in the United States are like children that have grown up and now are adults and can see their parental figures as the grandiose narcissists, the psychopaths that they are, because they're basically, it's becoming so apparent now. When you're a child, you can you try and do your best to navigate through something like that, but it's almost impossible, and you end up psychologically traumatized and physically traumatized and all of that if one has parents who do not care and who do not see them as people, just see them as something to dominate, a little bit like how we see non-human animals when we're not vegan. We don't even realize that we have an attitude of domination and that it's okay to exploit some and not others. So I see that it's like a lot in the US public are like growing up children now who can see, and I don't mean this to be patronizing or paternalistic or anything like that. I'm just putting that in terms of a metaphor, and that they can see their parental figures, who are the establishment or the 1%, the oligarchy, the capitalist class, can see them for what they are. Basically, people who are completely bereft of empathy, who are totally fine with their, totally fine that they are suffering and dying, and that are struggling constantly. They see them for the narcissists that they are, and that can only turn its way, it can only move towards a sort of liberation, in a way, once one recognizes and can put some framework around that. When one can recognize what is going on and truly see it for what it is, because they are so out in the open now with everything, how they're behaving in this COVID pandemic, then one can do something about that. And you can never unring that bell. Once you see them for what they are, the bell can never be unrung. There are some people who will make excuses for it, but I can guess that they are people that are doing fine, thank you very much. And then there are other people that are in almost a Stockholm syndrome kind of thing and need to have heroes all the time, need to have put people on pedestals. They cannot not take the power into their own hands. They need leaders all the time, people on pedestals, like how people are becoming almost cultish around Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and people like that. So I feel quite optimistic in a way. I think it's going to get way worse than it is now. I think it in the United States it may even become completely full-on fascist, overtly fascist, meaning where nobody in the world can think to themselves for a moment that it is any kind of democracy. I mean, it's not a democracy now; it's an oligarchy. But I think it's going to get to the point where even people who are lying their pants off about and making excuses and propping up the U.S. national security state narrative and the U.S. empire, I think even they would have a hard time getting it out. I think it would get caught in their throat to try and allow those words to come out. I think it's going to get to that point at some stage, and not too far away, maybe within the next 10 years. And then I think that it's basically coming to a point where it's going to be all over for U.S. empire. Externally, from what other countries are recognizing about it, with Donald Trump pulled the mask off empire. He wasn't a good salesperson, and Biden isn't much better, but he'll do a lot more covert sort of awfulness that people won't notice on the outside. But he's a crypto fascist, or he's a straight out white supremacist, and he's just continuing on what the empire wants him to do, basically, what the U.S. national security state wants him to do. But people on the outside of that country, I think, are waking up to the true nature of the U.S. empire, that it is an empire, that it wants full spectrum dominance. And then the people within the empire are seeing how they're now treating people, everybody, not just black and brown people, people of color, minority groups, etc., that it's everybody they're treating as garbage. They don't care. So anyway, I feel fairly optimistic that as awful as Trump was, he actually helped rip the mask off even faster than it was already coming off. And it is good that people now can see it. A lot of people can see it for what it is, and that they are rejecting. A lot of young people now are rejecting capitalism. Capitalism is a death machine. It is ecocidal, inextricably bound with imperialism. Fascism is capitalism in decay. So, once people can see that capitalism is just the complete neoliberalism, basically, is an expression of fascism. If they can see that there is nothing good that can come from neoliberalism, if they can see nothing good can come with neoliberalism, that it is going to take us down to struggling for every single thing, where there is no good news under neoliberalism, then I think it will be game over. Game over. And that is coming, but it's going to get a lot worse before that time. And as I said, there are far, far more people on the planet than there are the 1%, the oligarchy, the capitalist class. Far, far more. And that will be game over unless they wake up soon.